I'm going to just go through this handout. This is certainly not an exhaustive list of things that you can do with scraps, but you will think of other things or get ideas that you can do that also are brainless. All of the techniques that I use are things that you don't have to, pretty much you don't have to measure. Then you find your two ends. Make sure they're not I have to have, usually on the first couple, have a child help me, and they go clear to the other end of the house. Put your two ends together and sew it together all the way along this line, the whole long way. Then when you get to the end, you cut that fold, press it open, and then do the same thing. Fold it together, the other two, this will be pressed open. So there'll be two. Right. Yes.
Don't you have to make the first one that you start with shorter so that it offsets it like brick?
If you want to.
If
you remember to.
I just randomly whack it in the middle here and there, and then I use these things. These are the greatest things ever. If you're really handy, you can make your own. I bought these at the Idaho Falls Quilt Show a couple of years ago, and I use them all the time. And I press all of my seams open on my straight quilts because you can lay it out. I have two sizes. One is as long as my ironing board. You just lay this down on your ironing board, lay your seam across here, and because this is a nice rounded thing, it falls on both sides. And then you can take your iron and just go right down the seam and press it open that fast. It just works slick. And it's way faster than pressing them to one side. And then you don't get that distortion that you get sometimes when you press anything to the side. It presses the fabric, and it kind of, sometimes you end up with waves and things. It presses it nice and flat where it needs to be.
What's that called?
Seam presser.
Strip stick. And they are produced by BAB Enterprises, BABB. It's just a dowel that's been cut out, and you sew another piece on, and you sew a piece on, sew a piece on, so you just have a piece of fabric. I've done really quite a few of these. I'm working on red, white, and blue. Then when you get it so big, then you just cut your block out however you want it. Then what I do is the little pieces I have left over, I use those to start another one. I keep going.
You ever throw anything away?
She takes all of ours too. We're very happy.
If it's small enough that you can't get two seams in it, then I throw it away. I'll show you a couple of these. I've got a couple that I have. There's one. And it's I think it's almost a queen size, but
It's big. I'm not
it looks
unfolding
the
it.
same as all the. Here's another one.
There's a polish.
So that's those. They're fun. Brainless if you just are in the mood to sew. Fun. You do the same. You do a light and a dark and a light and a dark. But instead of cutting it into squares and diagonals, you need to cut it into
Pyramids.
I don't remember what you call those triangles. And then alternate how you put them together, and then that's what the block ends up looking like. Yes, I do. I have a ruler that's shaped like that has graduated width, so depending on how far up the fabric you put it, that will determine how big your triangle is. So that's a really also a brainless way to just cut.
I might have missed something. Did each of your strips start out the same way?
Yeah, these were all the same width. If you wanted to end up looking symmetrical, they need to be the same width. Yeah, that's right. If you don't, you don't. Let's see. Together, and actually you could do as many strips as you want, and then cut them into squares. And the size of your square would be determined by how many strips, how wide the thing is. So if you've done a 6-inch wide strip, then you do a 6-inch wide square. And then cut it diagonally so that you end up with triangles. Then you can turn them, and the way I did it is I turned them so that the right angle point was towards the center. And this is what it ended up looking like. So when you cut the triangle, then I put where is it?
The right angle.
This is the main one that I started with. I cut them in, cut them, and then put the right angles together. So that's the one I started with, and then I just filled the others in around. Funny. Use those colors up. So I just sat down one time and sewed a bunch of orange together, whichever with whatever direction. Just sew them all together and then cut out a pumpkin and put it back on it. I was gonna quilt a face on this, but I want to use it for Thanksgiving too. So I just have a black face that I put that sticky stuff on the back, so I just put it on at Halloween and take it off at Thanksgiving. But you can use that same thing to do snowmans for winter time and whatever you can think of, hearts and carrots and black cats and witches' hats. Then another thing to use up strings. This one, I actually took a class from Marianne Fons, and she taught this method. And if you go on into the Fons and Porter magazine, this is repeated every several years, I have found, and you can learn this. But I just sewed strips together any width until I had yardage of strips sewn together. And then you just take your pattern of the star, this 8-pointed star, and cut it out of freezer paper and iron it onto the back of the yardage that you've made wherever you want it. So if you wanted one fabric to be all around here, then you would iron them all in the same place. So you can offset them, whatever, so you can get the design you want. And then you use your rotary cutter and cut out 1/4 of an inch wider than the pattern that you ironed on there. And then you have a perfect way to stitch them together because you just stitch inside the paper. You end up with perfect points, it matches exactly, and then you can peel the paper off. But I left it on here so I could show you how to do that. Bullseye quilts, that uses up a lot of scraps, but it also generates a lot of scraps, which I want to use the scraps up, I don't want to make more. But this used a lot of scraps from a previous quilt, and most of
That's
these
cute.
came from Susan Hansen, did a quilt, and this black and white was the cutout behind a circle applique. She just had all these, and I think I can do something with those. So there were all of these bright pieces, and
Are these chairs taken? I guess they are.